The Boston Red Sox are about to break the MLB. I'm here to break down recent comments and quotes made by Jeff Passan and John Morsey, two of the top analysts covering the game of baseball, and how Pete Alonso and Alex Bregman's off seasons have gone up to this point, and how Marcelo Mayer may be the biggest piece of this conversation that has gone untold for. We'll break down all of that on this episode of Red Sox Digest, but first, please do remember, scroll down and stay up to date with everything Red Sox by subscribing to the channel. We do appreciate all the love and support, so thank you guys. But now let's get to it and break down the Pete Alonso and Alex Bregman updates and how Marcelo Mayer is the biggest focal point that has not yet been discussed because we are simply too early in the offseason to get to this point. I am going to quickly mention, yes, we are focusing on this Jeff Passan article that will be once again tagged down below in the description. If you'd like to read the entirety of it, we are going to focus on a few different pieces of verbiage here, if you will. And the first being, the Red Sox love Bregman, who opted out of the final 2 years and $80 million of his contract and won't close the door on a reunion despite having Marcelo Mayer ready to play third. Detroit and Chicago, which pursued him last winter but came up short, will rejoin the fray, with Philadelphia lurking as it juggles multiple potential paths. Now, to start, and before we get into the next piece of the verbiage or the next paragraph where it breaks down Alonso and what's going on there, Alex Bregman is interesting because we know that he was being paid very, very, very well by Boston. $40 million a year. He had $80 million left on the table for the next 2 years played in Boston. Obviously, he had an opt-out after this year as well as next year. He took the first opt-out and opted out after the first year in Boston, which, based off the underlying metrics, weren't phenomenal, but I will say he's one of the only Red Sox from this past year to have a Baseball Savant page and underlying metrics that look anything relatively close to this, as the vast majority of the Red Sox, if not all of the Red Sox, were the polar opposite when it came to the underlying metrics. If you look at things like squared up, chase percentage, whiff percentage, K percentage, as well as walk percentage, they were all below league average across the board, all correlating together. If you look at Bregman, he's the polar opposite. All of those categories are vastly above and past league average, which is very, very good. He's not striking out at a high clip. He's not swinging and missing at a high clip. He's not expanding the strike zone. He's not chasing pitches thrown out of the strike zone, and that's great. That's usually a winning formula, but the only problem is the overall average, the slugging, the WOBA, the average exit velocity, the barrel percentage, the hard hit rate, all of these things above the red underlying metrics that you see are at league average, if not below league average, and the overall production from Bregman was not to the level in which all of Red Sox Nation and really the front office was hoping for, and that's why I think this has not been already just overruled, in the sense that the second Bregman opted out, there wasn't immediately a new contract presented to him, and it seems like they're going to play this in the longevity side of things. They're not going to try to rush things and get things done and force something. They're going to expand and find all of their available options, grade them, and go through the process that way, rather than just jumping the gun and bringing back someone who you only have a year's worth of taste in a Boston Red Sox jersey with, in Alex Bregman. In Boston, we know he is phenomenal. If he played every single game of his career there, he would be arguably the best hitter to ever live. And that seems crazy, but he had a 1,200 OPS coming into this year, specifically in Fenway. He was a monster in Fenway this past season, but because of injuries and things sidelining him, he was never able to find that groove entirely after, the halfway point of this past regular season, after he goes down with the quad injury and the hamstring injury that really just really sidelined him for such a long period of time. It was hard for him to get back and be at the level in which he was to start the MLB season, which was really, really unfortunate. I will say Bregman does play an elite level third baseman, which is something that is going to add a surplus of value to his number this offseason, whether it's in the sense of years given to him or the overall AAV that is presented to him in that long tenured contract, which was the main reason that he opted out of that contract in Boston. Obviously, he was making $40 million a year for the next 2 years after he just made $40 million this year from the Red Sox. It wasn't about an AAV conversation. It was strictly about the amount of years he wants and was going to get on his contract. Obviously, the Red Sox only gave him that $3 million deal. And based off of Spotrac, it seems like his average value and what his overall value could be in the sense of comparable players, They have his contract at 6 years, $176.6 million, which would break down to $29 million annually. I'm sorry, the font is so incredibly small on my screen. I had to lean in. I will say, as we all know, Scott Boras is his agent, which we know how is going to affect things. Scott Boras is the most effective agent on the market for the game of baseball. Pete Alonso is also under the management of Scott Boras, which is going to make things very, very, very interesting. If you look at some of the comparable players, Manny Machado, Rafael Devers, Austin Riley, Matt Chapman, all of those guys got extremely massive contracts. Manny got an 11-year, $300+ million deal. I don't think Bregman's getting anything relatively close to that. The longest tenured contract I think Bregman is going to get is roughly that 6, maybe 7-year mark. And I think that is even stretching it in the sense of AAV. If he does get that if he does get that 6 to 7 year contract with whoever's willing to pay him, I think that number is going to be around 100 and maybe $160 million. The AAV is going to go down, but the sense of longevity is going to be the focal point of this up and coming contract for Alex Bregman and whoever seems to be the suitor, which could very well possibly be the Red Sox, as we know his tenure here in the sense of as a person and a player were very elite. They were great. He had Bregman's beers. He was beloved by the city of Boston. No one wants to see him go. So we'll see. If Boston is willing to offer him something even relatively close to the longevity and the tenure of contract that he's looking for, my overall expectation is that Bregman returns to Boston not only as an offensive and defensive piece, a major piece to this team, but a role model and just character that is a leader on this in this organization that goes leaps and bounds farther than the price tag presented to him. Now to the second part of this conversation, which is Pete Alonso. And we'll wrap this all up with the Marcelo Mayer conversation, which is quick and easy. But Jeff Passan goes on to say, Alonso's willingness to play designated hitter offers the sorts of avenues a first base only mindset wouldn't. We got to keep that in mind. He could stay with the Mets, move up to Boston, bring Cincinnati the big bat it desperately needs, or if Ryan Mountcastle is traded or non-tenured, split the first base and DH jobs in Baltimore with rookie Samuel Basallo, who will spend plenty of time at catcher. For all three, the expectation of a big dollar deal is high. How quickly those materialize will help shape the winter ahead. Jeff Passan spot on in the sense that Bregman and Alonso being two of the three biggest fish this offseason, and the second that their names are checked off the board, the rest of this offseason can really materialize. But because of the big names available at the top of the list, we're going to have to see how these guys play out before the rest of this offseason really does get going and the dominoes continue to fall. At least that's the way it feels on the outside looking in. Now, let's talk about this Pete Alonso conversation, because Pete Alonso and the Red Sox being the biggest threat to the New York Mets based off these quotes from John Morsey, which we'll highlight now. Shout out to Tyler Milliken for pointing this out on Twitter, quoting Morsey where he goes on to say, quote, I believe the Red Sox are the strongest contender of anyone to take Pete Alonso away from the New York Mets. That's the end of the quote from John Morsey. And then Tyler Milliken would go on to say it shouldn't be an either or with Alex Bregman or Pete Alonso. This team needs both. Figure it out. And I love this comment from Milliken, and I love this comment from John Morsey. Morsey, obviously, top insider analyst covering the game of baseball, and this is what he's good at, getting these big pieces of information and giving us good headway on what this offseason could really look like. Pete Alonso plugged in anywhere on any team is going to succeed, whether it's Detroit, Seattle, Boston, Colorado, it doesn't matter. Team-friendly ballpark or player-friendly ballpark, not so friendly ballpark to players, he is going to be very good. There's no way, especially offensively. Defensively, he wasn't great this past season, but again, he's playing first base, and if you look at his WAR, he's at the top of the league when it comes to WAR for first baseman, and a lot of it has to do with these underlying metrics, specifically offensively, and this is something that we alluded to earlier with Bregman. It's the polar opposite of what you saw from Bregman, but this fits the model of the Boston Red Sox, unfortunately. High strikeout numbers, high whiff percentages, high chase percentages, low walk percentages, and a lot of power. The expected average, I will say, is a lot higher than anyone else anticipated to be a Red Sox this offseason, which is very exciting. But it's the fact that they swing and miss a lot. There's a lot of Ks. There's not a lot of walks, and that's a lot of what we saw this past year from the Red Sox. And that's why Alex Bregman was such a good piece to this team, because he was a dominant outlier. He was trying to teach these guys and mold these guys to be more like him, not have so much swing and miss, not have so much strikeout, allow a few more walks, get on base freely a bit more, rather than relying on having not only to beat one guy on the mound, but then 8 other guys playing defense in the field. Allow yourself to take those free passes and get on first base and take the walks. That's something Alonso doesn't do at the highest percentage. You see everything is vastly past league average until you get to things like squared up percentage and everything else correlating. Squared up, chase percentage, whiff percentage, K percentage, base on balls percentage, all correlating just at league average, if not just below league average, while every other underlying metric offensively is way above league average and in the top percentile across the board in the MLB. Now, would he fit in Boston? Absolutely. There's no way around it. Pete Alonso with the monster there, and if you look at his spray chart in the top right from 2025, yes, he can hit it to all sides of the field and all pieces of the field, if you will. Right, left, center. He has the power to hit it out in basically any ballpark, but it's not just the home runs. It's the doubles. It's the balls hit off the wall, the long singles. If you can put him into Boston, he would be able to pepper the green monster, that left field monster, over and over and over again, just like we saw with Alex Bregman. If you look at the spray chart, there's the vast majority are being pulled in between third and second base and then to the left field wall. If that was plugged into Boston, it's really hard for me to believe things would not excel with Pete Alonso in Boston. Preferably, I would choose Kyle Schwarber. That's me being a selfish, biased fan of someone who enjoys Kyle Schwarber just a bit more than Pete Alonso. It feels like there's a bit more of a character there in Kyle Schwarber, a bit more of a leader there in Kyle Schwarber. Again, I could be entirely wrong, and we could get Pete Alonso, and he could boost the win share or the overall WAR, if you will, by 25, and I would have to accept my wrongdoing. But if you look at the price tag in comparison to Pete Alonso, Kyle Schwarber, Pete Alonso is going to demand just a bit more because he has the ability to play first base. If Pete Alonso is in the market to fully convert to a DH, this conversation is entirely flipped, without a doubt, because then it's a lot more similar to the Kyle Schwarber conversation. Schwarber's not going to play any defense. Pete Alonso can play defense at first base, but he can also fully move to the DH position if the first base becomes a liability defensively with Pete Alonso playing it. Let me know down below. Would you lean Bregman? Would you lead Alonso? Or would you rather the Red Sox commit to both of these guys and make a major splash in signing both of them? The price tag is going to be a little different. More years to Bregman, less years to Alonso. More pay in the sense of AAV to Alonso. Again, more years to Bregman, less AAV. It's a tipping scale here. Which way would you rather go? Do you think either of these guys would fit into the new molded Red Sox of the 2025-2026 season? It's going to be interesting. I can't wait to see how it plays out. Let me know down below your overall thoughts and opinions. And if you don't get Alex Bregman, are you okay with giving the keys to Marcelo Mayer at third base for the Boston Red Sox? In my opinion, I very much am. I have a lot of faith in Mayer. I think he's going to be the second best prospect out of the lot that we currently have, including Roman, Campbell, Tolley, Early, all of the guys being considered. I think there's a good chance it's Roman 1, Mayer 2, without a doubt, followed up by Early and Tolley without a doubt. But again, having the versatility and the flexibility of these young, talented players that can play all across the diamond is a huge plus for the Red Sox. And I think Mayer is going to be the next focal point for them going forward. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you on the next one.